Hello everyone and welcome to Stan the Wineman TV. I'm your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show where I try to help you spend your wine dollars wisely. And today I have a special guest, Chris Sparkman from Sparkman Cellars. Chris, thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Stan.
Chris owns Sparkman Cellars, and I'm just going to let him tell you a story. When did you get the winery started? How did it get started? I'd like to hear the story. You told me the story about you and Charles Smith, so...
Oh, right.
Yeah.
2004, I was general manager of the Waterfront Seafood Grill restaurant in Seattle, and had just learned that I was going to be a father, and we decided that we wanted to get out of the nighttime work deal. We knew a lot of folks in the wine business, figured we should start a family business. So we were going to do a wine store, kind of like what you do. And then I had dinner with Charles Smith. And Charles and I were having some sushi and sake, and he said, I had a wine store in Bainbridge, which he had several years prior to that, and he said, you know, that was cool, but you should do a winery instead. I said, Charles, I have no idea how to do a winery. And he reached, great prop, he reaches over and gets a stack of cocktail napkins. Just happen to have those, that's good. And he fires off all the algorithms for how to create a winery, and I'm like, okay, and I put them in my pocket and went back to my family and said, you know, instead of this wine store shop idea, what if we did a winery? My father-in-law, whose idea it was to start the family business, had looked at Napa Vineyards previously, and he is a man of great structure, and he likes a plan. And he said, son, you have a plan for that? And I said, I sure do. And I pulled the cocktail napkins out of my pocket, and that Sparkman Cellars was born, actually, at that point, in Sandpoint, Idaho.
Cool.
Yeah.
So when did you actually start the winery? What was the official...
I shook hands with Tom Hedges on Red Mountain, I think it was August 8th, 2004, and got about 5 tons of fruit or something. We made 300 cases of wine in 2004, and that has grown to almost 10,000 cases in 2013 across 20 different varietals. And we now make 25 different labels, not all of them every year, but we're curious about what Washington State can do. And I believe that in some way our, I don't want to call it schizophrenia, but our compulsion to create so many different iterations of what Washington can do across 5 different ABAs, 20 different varietals, 25 different wines, really starting to help us tell some of how incredible the state's potential is for making great wines.
Absolutely. So you have this winery, and then now, I think, when did you become the kind of the chairman of the Washington Wine Committee?
The commission put me on the board 4 years ago, and I became the chairman last year.
Okay.
I'll be the chairman again this year, and then I'll have another year after that, and see if I wear out my welcome. But we're excited at the commission. That's the state's marketing arm, and we are focused on trade partners and media and those folks who help drive the message to consumers in the best way. And if you haven't done this, we created an app for iPad and iPhone and Androids either now or very soon called the Recommendeur.
Yeah.
And has some really fun videos with this interesting character, the Recommendeur, and then some really great hard content about the legends of the state and the AVAs and the grapes, and you know, a lot of detail. If you want to learn about Washington State wine, go to that app or the Wine Commission's website. We've just launched an interactive map that's so cool, and you can go to Red Mountain, Ciel Cheval Vineyard, click on it and see what's happening real time today. Now.
Yeah, I already looked at it. It is an excellent website, and I've already learned a lot from it. You know, and Washington is just growing. We're over 800 wineries now. in Washington State. We did the SOM class down in Portland, and some of the master, Tom Price, was saying it'll probably be almost 900 by the time we get back.
It's going that fast.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Any new AVAs in the works? I heard about the Rocks. Is that going to become an AVA?
It looks like it is. I think there's actually public comment that has to play out, and it's the interesting part of that is it straddles Oregon and Washington's border, and so one of the questions is if you're an Oregon winery but you make Washington wine, who do you pay your taxes to, and what, and vice versa. So there's some logistics that need to be worked out, but
isn't the gorge the same way?
The gorge is, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got some stuff we've got to
work out,
clarify.
So that would be 14 AVAs if that is approved.
That's right.
14
That's
AVAs.
right. And I believe there are some other ones brewing, but I don't
sure.
have any detail on that right now.
At least nothing you're going to reveal.
Well, you know, we just and the word is potential. You look back at what happened to the state, a couple states south of us, that has driven the American wine industry for so many years, and you remember the wines that were made in the 70s, and
sure.
and you go down there. I was there in the 70s, but you have those wines in the 80s, and yet the infrastructure was kind of took a while to catch up. And in Woodinville, we're experiencing that, where we have 100 tasting rooms, but still it's a tiny little town, and there's only 2 or 3 great restaurants and only one really great hotel. And trying to figure all that out. So that the future is blindingly bright.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I'm curious about with the Sparkman wines is none of them what I would consider what's the word, budget wines. They're all in the upper 20s to close to $50. So what made you decide that was a safe place to go with pricing? I mean, especially you started this, you were getting into the recession.
We were.
Started this.
The guts of the recession. We figured, hey, it's a recession, let's make some expensive wine. It should be perfect. Logic has never really been one of my strong suits, but we've learned along the way. I came out of fine dining. You know, I started at Commander's Palace in New Orleans 30 years ago when Emerald was the chef. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth in the 1% kind of area, you know, and drank the great wines from around the world and got completely spoiled by that. Mm-hmm. But believed when we started, and believe even more so today, that Washington competes at that level, and we wanted to do that. We didn't really want to compete in the less expensive wines. You know, we wanted to make a small amount of seriously kick-ass wine and be able to focus on that. Now our focus, of course, is splintered into 25 flavors, but and we're getting ready. You mentioned up to $90 or up to $50. We're getting ready to release our first $90 Cabernet.
Okay.
42-year-old vines called Evermore, and it's exceptional. We're really excited to do that. At the same time, we have just relaunched our Kindred brand, which is a cab-driven Bordeaux blend that's retails around $20. So we appreciate all ends. We want everybody to be able to play the Sparkman wine game.
Right, and that's a good way to go. Always offer something that gets them started.
Yeah.
And I've always told my audience that the blue collar does not mean $20 and under wine. It just means that we earn our money and we want to spend it on good stuff, which, if it's good wine, we don't mind spending $50 to $100. It doesn't matter. And you're not in the upper 1% anyway. You've got Leonetti, you've got Cayuse, you've got these big players that charge a lot more money than you're charging. So, I mean, you're in a nice comfort zone.
Yeah.
It just was kind of curious that I always wonder, how does a guy decide, okay, I'm going to go for that $30 to $50 range and hope for the best?
Yeah, we look very closely, because I had many years of looking at the market from the perspective of a wine buyer, and we just believed that we could do this. We were naive enough to believe we could do it.
Well, it's worked.
Yeah, it has. We're blessed.
Yeah.
It's worked out really well. Our objective was for me to be a dad That was our number one thing, that I could be a dad that was around for Ruby Lee and Stella May.
Which are 2 wines that you produce.
Yep, and our daughters, who really are the reason that we work so hard to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. I was at home last night instead of running a restaurant, working on math with Ruby and reading with the girls.
Yeah.
And
quality
man,
time. You can't replace that.
Not going to get it back, right?
Yeah, exactly. I raised 4 children. I totally get it. Totally get it.
It's the best. So it's a good vehicle. And I'll tell you this, if we have 2 seconds. This platform, I call it a platform, there's got to be a better word, but this place that we teach from our children, the wine industry, the Washington wine industry, they get to go to the vineyards and understand that we got to take care of Mother Earth. We don't do that, Mom, Dad don't make a living.
Right.
The folks who are working the vines, they speak Spanish, a lot of them, and their families aren't necessarily from here. This is global culture, you know, and if we do well, they can do well, and they do well, we can do well. So this is a great lesson that they get to learn all the way from the beginning. We bring the grapes back to the west side in Woodinville, and we apply science, we apply chemistry, we do the art, we do marketing, sales, relationship building, events, there's accounting, there's all kinds of stuff, you know, that, and there's philanthropy. The girls love to know that, you know, Dad, you're going to an auction tonight, are you taking my wine, am I going to be able to raise money for those kids?
Sure, that's
a cool lesson, you know?
Yeah. So, excellent.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. Well, we're going to taste 4 of your wines today, and like I always tell my guys and girls, that I'm not going to grade your wines in front of you, only because I don't think it's a fair assessment in front of the owner. But that being said, I will say how good they are. A little rinse there. So this one first one is, you call it Pearl. It's a 2013 Sauvignon Blanc.
It is.
And why did you decide to put, like all your names have we have Apparition, Yonder.
Tarriga's just Tarriga right now. And there's a story behind that too, right? Yeah. We believe in identity, and if you give folks another reason to remember you, that's an important piece of our entire message.
Cool.
There are a lot of Sauvignon Blancs in the world.
Yes, there are.
There's only one Sparkman Pearl Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, there we go. I'm going to give them a picture of the label, if I can get it in the screen. Where are we at?
Are you?
Okay.
Are we there yet?
There we are.
There we go.
Let's get it in there.
So my wife Kelly in 2009 said, you know, honey, she's a good Southern woman. You know, honey, you've been making the wines and I've been raising the kids. I want to do my own wine. And she loved Sauvignon Blanc. She particularly loved New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc at that point. And I said, yes, dear. And we went and got some beautiful Sauv Blanc. We made what ended up being more of a Loire meets New Zealand kind of thing. It worked. She actually won Best Sauvignon Blanc out of Woodinville, peer reviewed the first 2 years we made the wine.
Really?
Yeah, and she got to get in there and do it, and it was really exciting. And, you know, it's just another layer of how cool it is to be able to run a business like this.
Absolutely.
Make those kinds of calls. In 2013, we had our winemaker Lynn Scott, who joined us in 2010. 2013, we had a vintage where the Sauv Blanc was plenty good, but we wanted to see if we could take it to another level. And we had some Roussan and some Grenache Blanc. We started doing some blending trials, and we found that my way of thinking, I kind of see us in the winemaking process as somebody who is in the music studios, behind the mixing board or sound board at a concert, and he gets to turn this dial and that dial. And this is what we do with these wines. Well, this year we added Roussan for the base. It gives texture, it gives richness, mid-palate, and we added Grenache Blanc for the treble. It adds some high notes, some structure, some acidity, and I think it might be the best one we've done yet. So we're maybe breaking the mold of making 100% Sauvignon Blanc, but there you go.
We'll see how it turned out. Before we start tasting these wines, I want to thank Mike Sheridan. We're at Mike's Wine Bar and Cafe here in downtown Friday Harbor. We got the street in the back, all the bustling, getting ready for the busy season, which is coming up in about a week. It's going to really crack, especially the 4th of July. So I want to thank Mike for letting us use his shop. It's a beautiful little wine bar here. If you're ever in Friday Harbor, stop by and see Mike's Wine Bar and Cafe.
You know, Mike used to be the mayor of Woodinville.
Really?
Yeah, when he hung out in our...
No, that's not saying much.
He wasn't the actual mayor, he was the unofficial mayor. And if you went into the coffee shop in the morning, there was Mike and his buddies holding court, and they were kind of the spiritual mayors of Woodinville.
That's right.
Yeah. So, thanks, Mike.
This is incredible nose. This is very interesting nose on this wine. I actually get a little bit of that New Zealand currant bud.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Currant bud.
Yes.
Some people call that cat piss. And it's weird to tell people that you'll tell someone that is not familiar with how that works in there, and they go, "Oh, I don't know if I want that in my glass," and then they go, "I get that. You know, it's not unpleasant.
Yeah.
You've got just a little of that currant bud."
Yeah, that it's cat pee sans the unpleasant side of it.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. It also has a lot of white licorice, which I find very intriguing. One of the best aromatic Sauvignon Blancs that.
You know, and this is the other part that
little cut grass.
just a little bit of the Roussanne gives you this stone fruit business, and I think the Grenache Blanc brings in the brighter citrus kind of thing, and then Sauv Blanc itself. And Sauv Blanc for this vintage was sourced from Boucher Vineyard and Oasis, which is a new site for us, and we're really excited about the future of this wine. When you're the new guy, or even a young winery, you are able to get the grapes that you're able to get, and then as you earn your stripes, literally, pay your bills, get your scores, then you're able to sort of move your way into maybe better blocks, different vineyards. Dick Boucher is a dear friend and one amazing grower. We serve on the board of the commission together. So that's another thing. We're working hard on getting the research dollars for our new wine science center all sort of ready to go for the next generation of folks, so we can compete in a real way at the research level, and also just to be able to keep our local talent here and attract winemakers and wine professionals from all over the world.
Sure. Yeah. I think Washington wine has certainly come a long way in the last 10 years. Huge.
Funny how that's about the same period as Sparkman Cellars has been around. So I don't know if there's any direct correlation, but...
Well, I definitely get the Roussanne. It gives it a fuller, a little bit more of that banana, mango thing.
Right?
Then you have this nice, clean, I mean this is clean Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, you feel like you just licked the side of a stainless steel tank.
You know what I love too is I'll tell people that I get a little bit of, you know, the way that sidewalks smell. It's nice. You don't get this a lot here because it never gets to be 95 often. Anyway, never often.
80.
And then it rains.
Yeah.
And you get that ozone on concrete, kind of that whole thing. I like that. It smells like.
So it doesn't have that whetstone element to it. Excellent Sauvignon Blanc. Now, what does this retail for?
22.
22 bucks. Not bad. I'd certainly pay 22 bucks for this.
Thank you.
And not feel bad about it.
Yeah. We can't keep up. Folks love it.
What I like about it is it's very balanced, good acidity, has a lot of elements that you don't get in every Sauvignon Blanc. No cat pee on the palate at all. And it avoids that, it doesn't get into the gooseberry, which a lot of people have trouble with gooseberry. They don't understand it. They don't know what they're getting.
We have a very complex array of yeasts that we employ on every varietal, and as a result in the blend of every wine. So this wine in particular had 3 different yeasts on it, and each one of them delivers a certain set of
flavor profiles.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, yeast is some people believe in indigenous yeast, but a lot of winemakers like to play with other yeasts, and it does add different characteristics to the wine.
We do indigenous yeast on our Lumiere Chardonnay.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, it just depends on what you're looking for, right?
I think my final tally was something like 16 different strains of yeast across our entire portfolio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now there's nothing wrong with that. There's some purists out there that, you know, they really get uptight about that sort of thing. I've never, in my career as a wine guy, which goes way back, I've never seen any harm in using different yeast. It's just like a chef who, you know, will use different
Murray
spices.
River salt, right? I mean, it has a certain set of flavors,
exactly.
and you can count on that. These yeasts are synthesized from natural strains that are found in real vineyards around the world, but
Absolutely.
they're, you know, we go to make Tempranillo or Touriga, we use something that's, you know, designed to work there. So that's, you know.
Well, you know, there's that whole natural wine movement, and they get all worked up about this stuff, and yet they'll go to a restaurant, you know, not feel bad about somebody putting Lowry seasoning salt on their steak, you know.
You know.
To each his own, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so now we're going on to the Sparkman Cellars Apparition Roussanne. It's a 67% Roussanne, 20% Grenache Blanc, 13% Marsanne.
That add up to 100, I sure hope.
Well, it looks like it to me. Some people on purpose do not let it add up to. Okay, there we go. Picture of the label. What does this one retail for, roughly?
24.
24 bucks. This is predominantly Roussanne.
It is.
One of my favorite grapes from the room. I love
And
Roussanne.
Washington can do it really well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So this grew out of our Ring of Fire Wine Club program. So
Okay.
we design wines every year. That you
Ring of Fire.
Ring of Fire. Well, we're from Tennessee.
Okay.
Kind of like Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Sparkman.
Okay.
You look at the logo, it kind of all goes together. Right?
There you go.
Right? And so each year we make wines, and we're going to have one today that you can only get if you're part of our Ring of Fire Wine Club. Hint, hint.
Well, I'm going to put a link up to Sparkman Cellars on this video, so you can go to it if you want to get your hands on some of the wines that you can't get at the retail level.
And for some of our key retail partners, we'll even sneak some of those out, you know. The apparition started there. The response was so overwhelming, we decided, let's blow this up. That's since happened with our Rainmaker Cab, the Wonderland Grenache, and I had a feeling about the next wine. So, but anyway, yeah, so we love the classic wines of the Rhone Valley, and of course Syrah and Grenache hold sway most people's minds about what happens there, but the white varietals that we can do, and this is from the Roussanne's from Olson, one of the great growers. Thank you, Leif. And then Boucher for Marsanne and Grenache Blanc.
Okay.
So this is top flight farming, and we really, you know, we use a couple of different yeasts. It goes into very neutral old barrels. We stir it once a week, and it, you know, we don't do a whole lot of messing with it. It's just,
Do you use puncheons, bigger?
no, these are all just
Barriques?
Burgundy barriques,
Yeah.
227 liter, and but you never know. I mean, we might. Now that you mention it,
Puncheons, I think, add some different dimensions to it.
we started putting puncheons into our program when we got really excited about Grenache. So in 2011, we started bringing them in. What was that? One of these past couple of years.
It goes by so quick.
Yeah, they do. It's hard to imagine it, you know. So it's crazy, but yeah.
All right, let's see what we get on the nose. You can pitch in too.
What I love about this wine is that, and it's fun to watch my wife Kelly's evolution, and we all are continuing to evolve in what we like on a daily basis, you know. And this has kind of become her sweet spot. It's somewhere between Sauv Blanc and Chardonnay. You know, it's got some of the richness of Chard, but it doesn't have all that weight, and it still has got the clean you were talking about in the back end of the Sauv Blanc. So that's what we love about this, the versatility of particularly seafood, what you're talking about coming in on shore this time of year. And I mean, halibut right now, and crab, and I saw some spot prawns the other day. You know,
lobster. Crazy stuff.
We've done the research, I can tell you.
Coming from the restaurant business. I get a lot of lemon, and you know, it's interesting, there's a little buttery fig component on the nose, a lot of pitted fruit, you know, it has all that, you know,
absolutely.
peaches and
nectarine, and
a lot of white flowers. It's a good nose. It's not overpowering,
right,
which Roussan can sometimes.
It can,
like, you know,
especially when it gets in a hot year.
Oh yeah, it's almost like Vaseline sometimes, and that's tough. But this has none of that on the nose.
So this is the beauty of the blending. You know, this is really where we will analyze each component over time, and then put them together in their youth, in their middle age, and then when they're mature and ready to become a wine, we'll do it again, and you know, make sure that our thinking is right. You know?
Right.
Love what Grenache Blanc brings. You know, it's just this almost like a dagger. We use Petit Verdot in this way in our Bordeaux blends. It just brings this certain structural pH balancing component, you know, naturally. I think that's critical.
So you see, I like Grenache Blanc in blends, but I do not like, I have yet to find a pure Grenache Blanc that I'm excited about.
I can tell you about a couple of them offline.
Okay. All right. I need to have one.
Yeah, there's some good ones from
They
Washington.
do a lot of Grenache Blanc in the Rhone Valley. They'll do it almost entirely Grenache Blanc, and for some reason, my palate, I'm not saying it's right, but it's boring.
Gotta be. I think it has to be the right vintage, the right treatment.
Well, you can tell me, and I'll get a hold of it, because I really do want to try one that's
right on.
I never give up. Now for you guys, this apparition is phenomenal because it's fresh, it's lively on the palate, it's not a spiciness, it's really a little white pepper.
It's a little white pepper, yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool, especially when you're having crab or lobster, that white pepper would really be a compliment.
Yeah, it does, it's, you know, you have that compare and contrast sort of basis for thinking about food, but this is a wine that actually does both at the same time. You know, it's the acidity to cut through the fats that are in there,
absolutely,
and at the same time envelop them, you know, because of the weight.
And what's really curious is it's got, you know how we talked about Roussan can be a little Vaseline texture, there's just a touch, just a touch on the back end, which makes it kind of linger, almost like you pasted it on the back of your throat or the back of your palate. I don't usually grade wines, but I would definitely go AA+ on this.
Right on.
That's an excellent.
I'll take the A+. I'm good with that.
That's an excellent blend. Good job.
Thank you.
That one's hard to spit out. That's very good. We're pouring that tonight, right?
Apparition. There's been a lot of Harry Potter in our house. My daughter Stella has read all the Harry Potter books 10 times.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never read a Harry Potter book.
You gotta do it. It's great, particularly with this wine.
With the yonder,
with the apparition. Yeah.
There we go. That apparition, fantastic. I was inspired.
Thank you.
Now we're moving on. You said you would never do a Cab Franc, and here you are.
I thought that.
Can you grab me a napkin?
Yeah.
Yes, I want it. I'm a little sloppy on the pouring. I have yet to figure that out.
I had no plans to do a Cab Franc, a varietal Cab Franc. We blended it into the Ruby League blend for 8 vintages now. And it works fine there. But you know that old saying about planning, right? If you ever hear God laugh, tell him or her your plans. So our general manager, Brian Kay, who is a very smart man, happens to also be a Southerner, came to us prior to the 12 vintage and said, man, we gotta make a Cab Franc. I said, Brian, why we gotta make a Cab Franc? He said, because the folks out there in your two tasting rooms, in our two tasting rooms, are demanding it. I'm like, come on, really? Like 2 or 3 people? So I actually went out there and talked to people and I said, if I could make one thing that we're not making, and at that point we probably had 18 wines, what would it be? And 100% of the people said, Cab Franc. I said, well, by God.
We're doing Cab Franc.
We're doing Cab Franc. We got some beautiful Cab Franc from Scott Williams' Cayona Vineyard on Red Mountain.
Great spot.
There's a pinch of Cabernet Sauvignon in it.
Yeah, let's show them the bottle here. Yonder, Sparkman Yonder, 2012, Cab Franc, Red Mountain. And what is this rolling in at?
That's $38 retail if you
Wine
can get it.
only?
Yeah, here's how prescient and wizarding that Brian is. We sold 120 cases at $38 in 3 hours. We were sold out.
That's crazy.
So I'm thinking he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, he did.
But we'll make more. Hopefully, Scott will agree to that. We'll find some.
Well, it's one of my favorite varietals. I love Chinon. Hard to sell because you have to really like herbs in you have to like toss salad in your wine. But what I find out from Washington is you don't get as much of that herbaceousness on the Chinon. And I believe as much Cab Franc that's coming out of Washington, eventually it will be. When they're doing song classes, they always pour typically where it comes from. Someday they'll pour Washington Cab Franc. Because so many people are doing it.
You know, Shane Bjornholm did this to us at Taste Washington a few years back, and it was a Chinook Cab Franc. You know, an iconic version of what Washington can do. Kay and Clay do such a great job with that. I would say, though, that I'm glad we launched this project in 2012 and not 2011.
Yes.
Because 11 was such a cool vintage.
Yeah.
That,
very lean.
I think it makes it tough, but you know.
Well, there was a lot of herbaceous Cab Franc out of the
A lot of herbaceous, a lot of things.
I guess.
Here and there.
So the first thing I'm getting on this one is like raspberries and cranberries. It's like raspberry and cranberry sauce.
Good.
Yes. I love raspberry.
I get a little bacon fat.
Yeah.
And some of that wood smoke and Asian spice kind of business.
Yep. A lot of beauty bark. Get a lot of beauty bark in this out there.
Beauty bark.
Beauty bark. You know that stuff you put in your flower bed when you don't want to weed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you were talking about.
My wife wants me to put that in our flower bed because I don't weed it enough, but I don't like beauty bark in our flower bed. I have to weed.
We had it. It sounds better. Beauty bark sounds better than mulch.
Well, mulch has a little barnyard thing sometimes. Great nose. Red flowers all day.
The flower part, once this thing starts getting open, just explodes. We leave this open for a couple of hours and come back to it, it's all going to be violets and lavender.
Yes, I can see that. We just uncorked these about 15 minutes before we started. They've been sitting here at the time we're talking, but obviously you can't can through this little teeny spot. But when I review wines, though, I always try to review wines the way I feel most of the consumers are going to drink that wine, and very few consumers. I mean, it's probably a 10% actually pour it in a decanter, or shake it up, or use
That's too bad. We should get them. We should.
Well, we're working on
Let's start a movement.
Yes.
Decant.
I did a decanting episode you should watch. I blended it, Venturi, in a decanter, 2 different styles of decanters. Venturi didn't really do anything with the blend.
Did it not?
Not at all.
Huh.
But the blender really, you should have a blender. That would have been a good idea.
Nathan Mirabal did a big experiment in his culinary lab. And from what I understand, there was blender and there were multiple methods of decantation and produced like 6 different wines.
Yeah. Let's see what we get on the palate. You attain a little bit of herbaceousness on that. It's there, but it's not overpowering. You get a little bit of that twig and tomato stem, but the dark fruit just like overtakes it big time. A little bit of baking spices on that, kind of linger around.
I love the texture of this wine. I think, again, as it opens, it does more than just the olfactory and the palate. It's
Nice chalky tannins.
Yeah.
I like that.
And then some suppleness to it. One of the things that we do in our program is we do all whole berry fermentation.
Okay.
Not whole cluster, all whole berry.
Okay.
So we don't crush any fruit. It's all destemmed.
Is it carbonic maceration?
No, but we end up pounding it. But the theory, the thinking, the hope is that we mitigate to some degree the seed tannin, which is the more astringent tannin,
Okay.
and thus provide ourselves with a much more supple, elegant wine. You know,
Yes.
the tannins are really softer and silkier.
The beauty of this wine is at the very, very back end. For those of you guys who are into chocolate, this has like a bittersweet chocolate at the very back end, but it's not like a New World chocolatey, goopy thing. It's just barely there, but it's very pleasant. I mean, it just kind of hangs on the backside. It's like that's what I'm getting right now. It's just like I just ate a really quality dark chocolate bar, and it's the finish of that. You know, not the initial hit, but how it lingers on the back.
Yeah,
of the
it's like Cameroonian chocolate or something.
Cameroonian.
Yeah.
I just had a Cameroon chocolate.
It's cool to see that. I was in the Peace Corps in Cameroon, and we had cacao growing in our yard. It's always kind of cool to see like Cameroonian chocolate show up in shelves. This is clearly Cameroonian bittersweet chocolate.
Clearly. I'll take your word on it. I can't put my finger on it, but I believe you. Red flowers are like violets, rose
Keeps
petals.
coming, right?
Oh, man, they're all over.
That's what Cab Franc, for me, that's what Cab Franc is about, is the floral, really.
But you didn't stray too far away from what Cab Franc should be in that little tiny hit of vegetal herbs and things.
Yeah, but not green bell peppers and
No,
asparagus
it's not
and all
salad.
that stuff. Yeah.
It's not salad in the mouth, that's for sure. It's not Chinon, which it shouldn't be because it's not from the Loire Valley. All right. Good stuff. I'm tempted to score that.
Are we winning? Are we winning?
You are winning. What was that Cab Franc you said it went for? 38?
38.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now, this is the one I was really interested in. Touriga Nacional. No name on it yet. I'm sure you'll come up with one. That is approved by the TTA?
TTB.
TTB, that's it.
More importantly is the PTA.
Let me show them the label. 2012 Touriga Nacional. For those of you who I'm sure most of you know, Touriga Nacional is the grape of port, the main grape that they produce port from in Douro, Portugal. And Jed Steele does a Touriga Nacional port-based wine. We went out in his vineyard in the back of his winery and he has a Touriga there.
We do that too.
I see that. Where do you get your Touriga from?
Let's see. This vintage came from Red Mountain.
Okay. There it is right there.
Yeah.
Red Mountain. I was curious though about the vineyard.
Red Heaven.
Red Heaven.
And then going forward, last year we got Touriga Nacional, Suzal, Tinta Cow, and Tinta Madeira.
Okay.
From Uplands Estate on Snipes Mountain.
Right. Yep.
Newhouse family, amazing property.
Yes.
And from Lonesome Spring, Colin Morell's place in the southeastern Yakima Valley. Terrific program, and we're really kind of excited about what Portuguese varietals can do in Washington. There's evidence because we actually made a varietal Touriga. We messed around with some Tempranillo and it was good. It didn't make the cut. The Touriga it just stood out. So, and then we do a little port. Can't call it port, but it's a fortified port that we call Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, at the
I'm
end
waiting for somebody to call it trop.
Trump.
I mean, you know, that would make it.
Oh,
true.
right.
Pour it backwards.
Pour backwards, yeah.
It's called trop.
Well, we like hallelujah because I mean, you know, at the end of a big dinner, and you're like, if I only just had just a little
Something sweet.
something sweet, just to like hallelujah, brother. Yeah. So that's our thinking.
God, this is black licorice all day.
Little that barnyard.
Not a huge amount, but I get cherries and black licorice. A little bit of cranberry comes through. A lot of rose petal. Nice brightness. I mean, it's like you got a kick on it. It's like, you know, hits you in the face. This is a good bouquet. I mean, it's just like, boom, there it is. Hello. No, it's crazy. It's like cherry and black licorice together. But the cherries are red. They're not black cherries. They're red cherries. Wow. Even a little like Amarone aspect in there, a little bit of raisin on the backside, which is really, this is delicious. This is like a 10 in the delicious category.
Isn't it cool?
It is cool. Red flowers, black licorice, cherries. Crazy. A little bit of raisin on the backside, like almost like you mix a little Amarone in there at the very end.
But it does have a little of that old world feel to it. And 2012 was this vintage for the ages.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Everything
just,
out of 2012 is
if you couldn't make good wine in 2012, you might want to think about another something.
And not as much chocolate as the other one, but there's just a touch on the backside of this one also.
Not Cameroonian.
No.
More like Belgian
Yeah,
or something.
more of a mild, sort of like a milk chocolate.
I love it. There's even a little
Boy,
of
this
the,
is really good.
you know, that iodine kind of peaty thing there.
Yes. So hopefully you guys see this, but this is the Ring of Fire Sparkman. Let's get the whole thing. But this one really shows it.
You can still get this if you join the club before
We'll put a
August.
link up. We'll put a link up.
Yeah.
And don't forget to put this on your website, this interview. So it all
It'll be
comes
there. It'll be
together.
there ASAP.
All right. What a great wine.
Isn't that fun?
I'm glad you brought that.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
One of our double top secrets.
All right. So Chris, I really appreciate you coming on board and doing a video with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We got a great tasting to go to tonight. I'm really looking forward
Me
to
too.
it.
Appreciate the support.
Thank you, Mike, for letting us use your shop. Thank you, Chris. Cheers.
Cheers.
And here's to keeping the snob out of wine.
There you go.